you are revealing too much, not in the dramatic sense. You are not confessing secrets to strangers or posting your private life publicly, although many people are doing exactly that. The revealing that costs you most happens in ordinary conversation, in the way you explain your plans before they are complete, in the way you share your struggles with people who have not earned access to them, in the way you announce your desires to an audience that did not need to know. Friedrich Nietzsche spent his entire intellectual life studying the psychology of power, what builds it, what destroys it, and what most people quietly do that guarantees they will never fully possess it. One of his most precise observations was this: the person who speaks freely about themselves hands the world a detailed map of their interior, and the world, consciously or not, uses that map. Today I am going to give you 4 things that Nietzsche identified as things you should protect, not share, not process publicly, not offer as social currency in exchange for sympathy or connection. 4 things. Keep them private. And I am going to explain exactly why, in terms that go far beyond the vague advice to be more mysterious. Thing 1. Never reveal your next move. There is a specific dopamine mechanism that most people never examine, and that costs them more than they realize. When you share a plan, your brain receives a portion of the reward that was supposed to come from completing it. Researchers at NYU studied this in detail. When you announce an intention, a goal, a project, a decision, your identity is immediately updated to include that intention. Other people acknowledge it. They respond to you as if you have already done it to some degree. And the brain, receiving that social confirmation, registers partial satisfaction. The result: the motivation to actually complete the plan decreases, because the brain has already received some of what completing it was supposed to deliver. Nietzsche understood this intuitively. He wrote in Beyond Good and Evil, "The man who announces his greatness is already doubting it. The announcement is the compensation for the lack of action." The man who is truly building something does not need to announce it because the building itself provides the reward. Keep your next move private, not to be mysterious, because privacy protects the internal pressure that drives completion. The pressure releases with every announcement. Protect the pressure. Thing 2. Never reveal your weaknesses. This one will feel counterintuitive in a cultural moment that celebrates vulnerability as a form of strength. Nietzsche was not opposed to self-knowledge. He demanded it, relentlessly, with more honesty than most people can tolerate. Examine yourself. Know your weaknesses precisely. Understand them deeply. But he drew a sharp distinction between knowing your weaknesses and advertising them. Because here is what happens when you share your weaknesses freely. The person who genuinely cares for you, who would use that information to support you, represents a small fraction of the people you interact with. Most people, operating from their own interests and insecurities, file the information differently. They file it under. This is where this person can be pressured. This is where they are vulnerable. This is what I can use if this relationship ever becomes competitive. They do not do this consciously or maliciously, but the information sits there. And in moments of conflict, of competition, of social maneuvering, it becomes available. Nietzsche wrote, "The higher man guards himself, not through strength, but through the intelligent protection of what is genuinely his. Your weaknesses are genuinely yours. Guard them. Share them with the rare person who has demonstrated, through years of consistent behavior, not through expressed sympathy, that they can be trusted with them. Everyone else gets to see only what you choose to show." Thing 3. Never reveal who you truly are. This is the most subtle of the 4, and perhaps the most important. Every person contains a public self and a private self. The public self is the character you present, the set of positions, preferences, reactions, and behaviors that the social world sees and responds to. The private self is different. It is the actual quality of your thinking when no one is evaluating it, the genuine depth or shallowness of your observations, the real beliefs you hold before social pressure shapes their expression, the authentic desires that exist before they have been filtered for acceptability. Nietzsche argued that most people never develop the private self because they immediately externalize everything. Every thought becomes a statement. Every observation becomes a social offering. Every genuine reaction is immediately processed through the question, how will this be received? And in that constant externalization, the private self atrophies, because it never has space to develop. He wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "The higher man is silent about himself, not because he has nothing to say, but because he has more inside than can be said. The person who reveals everything they think, who shares every observation, every opinion, every reaction, is not someone with nothing to hide. They are someone who has not yet developed anything worth protecting. Develop the interior. Protect it deliberately. Not because the world is dangerous, because interiority requires privacy to grow. Thing 4. Never reveal your deepest desires. Desire is one of the primary ways other people gain leverage over you. When you reveal what you desperately want, the relationship, the recognition, the specific outcome, you have given anyone paying attention a precise description of what can be used to motivate or manipulate you. The man who visibly needs the approval communicates that his approval can be withheld. The man who obviously craves the status signals that the status can be used as a reward or a threat. The man who reveals his deepest desires is a man whose behavior can be predicted and shaped by anyone willing to work with those desires. Nietzsche wrote, "A man who says everything he desires soon has others directing his desires for him." This is not paranoia. This is the observation of someone who had studied human social dynamics with uncommon precision. People respond to the desires you reveal, and they respond in ways that serve their own interests, which frequently overlap with yours but are never identical to yours. The sovereign person, the person who cannot be fully controlled by others, is the person whose deepest desires remain private, not suppressed, not denied, simply not available as leverage. Pursue what you want, but pursue it without announcing it. The announcement is what creates the leverage. The silent pursuit is not. Now, why do people reveal so much? Because withholding feels like lying. Because transparency has been culturally positioned as a virtue and privacy as suspicion. Because the need for connection, genuine and important, gets confused with the need to share everything in order to be accepted. Nietzsche distinguished between these needs precisely. Connection that depends on total disclosure is not connection. It is performance. The real thing. The relationship in which another person knows you and values what they know does not require that you share everything. It requires that what you share is genuine. You can be genuine without being completely open. You can be honest without being fully readable. You can be in genuine relationship with people while still maintaining the private interior that Nietzsche considered essential to the development of a powerful mind. What silence actually communicates? When you stop oversharing, when you stop narrating your plans, advertising your weaknesses, broadcasting your desires, something shifts. The people around you do not receive less of you. They receive a different version of you. One who appears more complete, more directed, more in possession of something that they cannot fully access. That inaccessibility is not coldness. It is not arrogance. It is the natural impression produced by a person who has developed genuine depth and protects it deliberately. Nietzsche's philosopher, his ideal of the higher man, was not a loud person, was not a constantly self-revealing person, was not the person in every social situation who ensures that everyone knows what they think about everything. The higher man was someone whose interior was rich enough to sustain long periods of silence, whose observation was deep enough that most reactions could simply be observed without being expressed, whose judgment was secure enough that it did not require constant external validation. That person communicates power without performing it. How to apply this today? One practice, immediately available. Today, notice every time you are about to share something about yourself that was not requested, not asked for, simply offered. Notice the impulse. Then ask, what am I hoping to receive in return for this disclosure? Sympathy? Validation? Connection? Recognition? Then ask, is this actually the right way to get that thing? Most of the time. The disclosure is not the most effective path to what you actually want, and recognizing that gives you a choice you did not have before. Keep what belongs to you. Let your actions speak what your words have been trying to say. Nietzsche's final word on this: the strength of a person can be measured by how much they need to be understood by others. The sovereign person needs to be understood by very few, and not at all by the many. Build that sovereignty, starting with what you choose not to say today. If this gave you something useful, subscribe. Philosophy every week. No motivation, no fluff, just what actually holds up.